Hi everyone, thanks for taking the time to be here in today's webinar. Today we have picked up a topic on SaaS, yesterday, today and tomorrow. As many of you been knowing, SaaS has been in discussion, has been in several topics that have been happening around the world for the last quite a few years. And over a course of period, it has also transformed into many shapes. It has transformed into several mechanisms of delivering the SaaS solutions itself. So in today's webinar, we will briefly look at how the transformation has taken place. And today we have got three panelist members who would be sharing their views on the various aspects of SaaS from an operational perspective as well as from an execution perspective. As well as on the technical front. So I hope we will be able to share a lot of insights from this session. So without much delay, I'll probably give a very quick 2-minute overview on where we are, where we started and where we are today from SaaS evolution perspective. And then probably we can get introduced to the panelists, and followed by that we'll have the questions discussion. So as many of you know, the whole idea of the software publisher producing a software and then having it installed on the premises of the end customer has been the traditional model of delivering software, and that's how it has been working. And it slightly transformed into what we call the ASP model of working, the application service provider, where the software publisher still produced the software, but then it was handed over to another vendor who's typically the ASP, the application service provider, who takes care of the data center where the applications are hosted, and from there it's delivered to the customers. This has been kind of a model that has been happening in the past decades prior to 10-12 years. But then this model had several challenges in it. As you could imagine, it had challenges for both the end customers as well as for the ISVs producing the software. From an end customer perspective, they had to spend the initial amount of huge capital expenditure and then an ongoing operational expenditure. And then they have this requirement of an IT expertise in-house who can actually manage the applications. And in some cases, there is also a vendor lock-in where once you invest on the software, then you are kind of tied to it. It doesn't give you the flexibility to kind of move away from it. And then the further updates and releases of it, upgrading it becomes a nightmare from an end customer perspective. Likewise, on this ISV front, the challenges were more around the sales cycle. The amount of time it takes to close a deal is quite high in a traditional on-premise model. And then the implementation time, which again takes a huge amount of time and effort, is another factor that comes into the picture. And due to the high cost of nature of the licensing they do, which in this case is a perpetual licensing, they typically target the large customers, but not the small and medium, and hence they miss the long tail, what we call the user base of SaaS. And on top of it, customization becomes a nightmare again, because you cannot do too much of customization on the product, then you will end up having several versions of it. So some of the challenges, and that's when the SaaS started evolving, and then it started taking the shape of initially a single tenant, and then now there is multi-tenant also available. And today, different ISVs choose either a single tenant or multi-tenant depending on what works for their given business. We'll touch upon some of these points down the line. But the idea of the SaaS, as you can see, is being able to operate with a single code base. It could either be the same code base, having set up in different instances, and then deliver to the respective tenants. Tenants in this case are the end customers. But the biggest difference from this model versus what we saw earlier from an ASP model is that the software publisher is still taking the responsibility of hosting it and delivering to the end customers. So the job of the software provider is not just developing the software, but also being able to deliver and manage it and take complete responsibility of it. That's the biggest transformation we have here. So with that brief intro, we can get into the introductions of the panelists we have here. So we'll start with Mr. Veiko from M-Files. Veiko, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So this is Veiko Juuso from M-Files. Corporation speaking. And as a short introduction of our company, the OnPremise was founded in 1989, but we actually entered in the ECM, that is Enterprise Content Management, Document Management markets in 2005. Company is privately held. We're having headquarters in Finland and Texas, USA. And recently we have reached 10 million year revenue milestone with a 5-year growth rate of 500%. We have sold licenses, or actually our license sold has been increasing heavily, and during the last year the rate was actually 53%. We are Microsoft Gold partner and having more than 200 resellers operating in 55 countries. Our customer base is global. We have over 2,000 customers in 90 countries, and the software is provided with 24 languages. Primarily, we have been targeting the small and medium businesses, but we have been lately winning also deals with larger enterprises where there have been few of those mentioned, like Banro, Andrix, Exo, Blackfoods, so on. And the industries that we have served are varying from manufacturing, pharmaceutical, to real estate, quite a large area. The next slide, please.
Yes, we go.
Okay, and the Enterprise Content Management solution is actually having a couple of or few product variants. To mention, for instance, at first we have, of course, the traditional document management variant. Then we have own variant for quality management, and then one variant for enterprise asset management, master data management, and then a variant for human resources management and development, and then for contract lifecycle management solution. And for the larger customers, we also provide customer solutions. And features in nutshell, what do we have in OnPremise? Easy management of documents, emails, and records. Easily changed and managed information structure. So this means that one is able to define the metadata structure within files administratively. In client side, we have, of course, functionality like automatic version history, audit trail, ability to roll back any version from history in documents and records. And then we have metadata-based permission management, workflows, assignments and email notifications, indexing for data to speed up the searches. Hierarchies can be applied if so wished in metadata structure. And offline uses we have business intelligence and reporting add-on, and connections to various external systems are possible with database connections. And as said, OnPremise can be provided as a cloud world solution, on-premise, or hybrid combination of these two previously mentioned. Active Directory integration is possible. User interfaces, we have regular Windows client, web access, and mobile access. Once again, OnPremise is not only an extraordinary as a document management tool, but it provides plenty of applications for various kind of information management also. So that was a nutshell introduction of OnPremise.
Thank you, Veiko. Thanks for that introduction. And with that, we'll move on to our next panelist, Mr. Alex Ginger. Alex, please go ahead with your introduction.
Thanks, Janaki. So as Janaki mentioned, my name's Alex Ginger from Active Operations Management International. To give you a brief introduction to our organisation and our experience with software as a service, we're perhaps a slightly different type of organisation than traditionally talks about this topic. Our business is centred on helping service operations improve performance. When I say service operations, I mean back office processing centers, call centers, organizations where large numbers of people process high volume transactions. And I'd say that we're a little bit different because our business is founded on the basis of a best practice methodology for managing service operations environments. When I say methodology, part of our goal as an organization is to be, for example, regarded as the Prince 2 of operations management, what Prince is project management, or perhaps the lean if we compare it to sort of process and performance improvement. So a lot of our business is delivering training and coaching in our methodology, but software is a vital part of our business as well, perhaps the most important sector, in that we do sell a suite of software products which support our method and our process. Workware is the name of our software suite, and Workware is a planning and control application used in the service operations environment. Perhaps the simplest way to think of it is in the way that Microsoft Project provides functionality for a project manager to plan and control a project, so does Workware provide that sort of functionality for an operations manager. So it allows organizations to forecast future work requirements and resource availability, to plan to meet service level agreements, and then to monitor and manage that performance through reporting and management information. We're a 100% web-based application. We don't have any installed base actually within our customers. We're UK-based, but as you can see from the diagram here, we also have divisions overseas in North America, Africa, India, and Australia, and the Far East. At larger scale, we currently support around 35,000 to 40,000 people around the world having their time planned and managed within our application, and that's the key metric we use to manage the size of our, to understand the size of our installed base. We'll talk about that perhaps in the questions later on. Type of people we work for, banks, insurance companies, increasingly the public sector. So some of our customers include Barclays, the Department of Work and Pensions in the UK, for example. I could just have the next slide. So a brief run through of our background in software as a service. We got into this market about 6 or 7 years ago, back in 2005, when we redeveloped our software from a traditional client-server application. Since then, we've grown to around 40 software as a service customers, which is practically all of our existing customer base. We focus very much on large enterprise installations, so relatively small number of customers, but very large user base, around 10,000 users. Our approach is very much to develop standard products with a lot of stability, as opposed to perhaps the platform returns or infrastructure service type offerings that are developed today. And that's really because we're trying to develop a best practice model for our industry, and therefore we want all of our customer base to benefit from the latest developments and innovations that we provide for any one of our customers. We develop our own software in-house both in the UK and India. We host around the world through outsourced data centers, and we service the customer base both on a technical and user support basis out of a couple of different locations. Like many SaaS organizations, our commercial model is based around licensing on a monthly metered basis, very much pay for what you use. Interestingly, we don't do that on a user basis. Our customers can have as many user accounts as they wish. We bill on the scale of the organization that a customer has chosen to manage using our software. Finally, a few points in terms of what's our viewpoint on software as a service. Been in the game for a few years. I just have the final slide. I think from our point of view, SaaS has been vital to our success as an organisation. We've grown significantly in the last 7 years, and And there's some key reasons why that's the case. Principally, we sell to operations directors rather than IT directors, typically. And so the ability to rapidly deploy a SaaS solution, we can literally say we'll start tomorrow if we wish and deploy a system, gives us a huge advantage because a lot of our project sponsors don't want to take on the complications of working through the processes of getting software deployed in-house. So speed to project start and speed to benefit have been very important for us. Commercially, we're obviously able to make a lot of the fact that there's no upfront capital expenditure for our product, and we often operate offers such as we don't charge for the software until the benefits have improved and effectively the software is paying for itself. And that's the sort of model that's very difficult to deploy if we're not operating in the SaaS. And it's also very much the case that we've been able to offer lower cost solutions than we would have been if organizations were hosting applications themselves. Finally, and perhaps the biggest thing that's been a success for us in working through SaaS is the ability to offer additional services off the back of the core SaaS solution. Our application is very much a data-rich application, contains lots of mineable data about the performance of an organization, and because we can see that data, access it, analyze it, we're able to offer a whole range of additional services that we simply wouldn't have the capability to deploy with an on-premise type of installation. So that's all I'll say for the moment. I hope that gives a bit of an introduction into who we are and what we do.
Thank you, Alex. So we'll move on to our third panelist today, Mr. Ram Kumar. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So Texelo is actually not a SaaS product, but we provide a middleware that is used by ISVs to build SaaS products. What Texelo provides is a cloud-ready multi-tenant application platform, development platform that SaaS providers can use to build SaaS products faster and better. So they get to save about 30 to 40% of their time and effort in building a SaaS application. And once they build the application using the Texelo product, they will be able to host it anywhere. You know, they can host it on Amazon, Azure, private cloud, or even in on-premise servers. So typically there are multiple ways to build a multi-tenant SaaS application. The first alternative is to build on existing app as solutions like Post.com or Salesforce.com or similar solutions, where you can build your application faster. You don't have to have experienced developers. You just have business analysts directly developing the application. Whereas the second alternative is to build the whole application ground up, either using .NET or J2EE, and then host it on an infrastructure as a service like Rackspace or Amazon. Whereas Texelo gives you the third alternative, where you can build an application on top of the Texelo development platform. The developers only build the business functionalities, and then you host the application on either a PaaS or a IaaS or even on-premise server. So some of the things that comes ready-made when you build an application on Texelo is the scalability and the data access control, which can be customized for different tenants differently. And then we also have a lot of customization capabilities, where if you are built a SaaS application and you are going to have a multi-tenant SaaS application with a single code base, but your customers want the application to be customized to suit their organization, then you need to really be able to do the customization for your customers without changing the code base. So Texelo supports that, where right from themes and logos and forms and grids to adding custom fields, even business rules and workflows can be customized for different tenants differently. Customers can create different reports which are customized to their organization. All this is possible by the end customer, the tenant customer, without the SaaS provider having to customize the software code for each customer. So this really saves a lot of operational cost and maintenance cost. And you're able to maintain a single instance of your server used for supporting multiple thousands of customers. And it's scalable. That's about XML.
Thank you, Ramkumar. Thanks for those introductions. And with that, we'll move forward with our panel discussion. And participants can feel free to type in their questions that they would like to also be asked during this discussion. We'll try to accommodate it to the relevant topic that we are discussing. So we'll have few teams for today's discussion. So we'll go team by team, and then we will discuss certain aspects in each of those teams. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post it. So with that, we'll get started with our first question. So we'll start with the SaaS adoption model itself. We'll take that topic, and then some of the key questions that come up are the first one being, while you are in an on-premise model, what kind of factors actually drive an ISV towards adopting a SaaS model? So I think we have a good panelists today who have done it in the past and who have adopted SaaS. So it'd be great to hear from them. So Vaiko, you would like to share your views on that first?
Yeah, the key business factors. Well, I would say that the business demand is the main thing. The customers would like to get rid of the hardware and software costs, and also to get reasonable level on IT personnel costs. I think that those are the main reasons actually why to go to cloud.
Sure. Alex, you have any other different views here?
Yeah, I think for us, I would agree with those points. I think, as I touched on earlier on, I think that the ability to deploy rapidly has been huge for us, and also I think I'd cite the ability to progress the functionality of the software and not be stuck behind change cycles and change windows inside an organization. As we try and develop best practice for our customers, we're in control and we can orchestrate the upgrade process.
Sure, Alex. And also linked to that is the amount of culture change that has to happen within the company. I mean, when we say culture change, it affects almost all the departments of the organization, right, from sales and marketing to the support teams. So how did you go about doing this change? Were there any kind of best practices that you followed in this, or any learnings that you had?
Yeah, I think sorry, do you want me to talk about anything?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. Yeah.
Sure. And so for us, to a certain extent, it's all we've ever known. We've been operating SaaS for so long, but I think there are some key things that have helped us. I think the fact that we are offering services outside of the provision of the software, so we do provide training, coaching, and consulting services around that, and that keeps us very close to our customers, and so we're able to keep our support functions, our marketing functions, etc., very, very well informed about what the customer is trying to achieve and what they want, and therefore we're able to be very responsive to the customer's needs.
Sure, Alex. So Vaiko, did you had any specific internal challenges that you had to kind of overcome when you took this transformation or had this offering to that model?
Yeah, I would say that actually the timing was so good for us, because we started actually the development of the Cloud Vault version in 2009. But the timing was so good that the hype in the market was so big that it was easy to bring in also the idea of having Enterprise Cloud Vault. And we didn't have actually too many obstacles inside for this idea. Then, of course, with some customers, there are doubts, but then again, we have also on-premise solution available. So in sales-wise, it wasn't a problem either. And nowadays, when time has gone and we are living 2012, actually in some land, some countries, actually almost 50% of the customers are selecting cloud now. So I think that the timing was good for us.
Okay, that's great. Ramkumar, you coming from a different perspective here altogether. So how are your customers viewing this SaaS adoption, and what kind of things they are driving towards?
Yeah, I think see, many of our customers are actually doing a very phased migration to SaaS. As far as we have seen, a lot of them have on-premise solutions, some of them very large suites of products on on-premise model. And the first reason why they look at SaaS is to get to the medium scale and small scale customers whom they have never been able to address so far, because their existing products are very expensive. And so they want to go to the long tail of the market and get more customers. That's the primary reason why they get into SaaS. But they also do it in a very phased way. They start with a small application, try test the market, and then slowly bring more and more applications and more features into the same SaaS product. That's how they do. They do a very phased approach.
Okay. Sure. And along with the SaaS model, there is also this big change in terms of the cash inflows that typically happen, because there in a non-premise you typically get a kind of a chunk of cost upfront, and which you use it for further maintenance and other issues. Whereas in case of SaaS, it's going to be an ongoing smaller stream of revenue, but on a recurring basis. So this cash flow definitely has an impact in terms of how you make your decisions from a business perspective. So Veiko, how did you approach this thing, and how did the pricing model also kind of help you in handling this cash flow changes at your end?
Well, actually, we of course follow the. This is Veiko.
Sorry about that, Veiko.
No problem. So I was starting to explain that we are of course following the monthly invoicing raise in SaaS. And what's the other part of the question, that how do we set up the pricing of the cloud services? Was that part of the question?
Yes, Veiko. So
yeah. Okay. The pricing was actually derived from our on-premise product, and converting that into the monthly invoicing was rather easy. But the difficult part was, of course, how to include costs of IaaS or PaaS services provided by some third party. But we have to do some estimations, and I think that we have succeeded in that area also pretty well. So things are ongoing.
Sure. But on an ongoing basis, like how do you measure the, because you would have done an investment upfront in terms of putting together a SaaS solution. So how do you kind of measure if you're performing well? Are there any specific business metrics to be used by SaaS companies, SaaS ISVs?
I would say that the most important thing is the monthly invoicing, recurring revenue. That has to be followed, of course, and one must do some calculations when investing in the product development, that is it worth of investing in there. So I don't have any
sure. Sure. So Alex, how about in your case, how did you arrive at the pricing model? You've been operating on an on-premise and then moved to SaaS. So how did the pricing model itself got arrived? Did you do any specific formula for that, or is it more of a trial and error? How did you approach it?
Yeah, I guess the approach we took was one of that we're providing, in our case, a range of services, some of which are software related, some of which aren't, which help an organization achieve performance improvements. And those performance improvements have got a value to that organization, whether that's typically, perhaps that's an improvement in staff productivity, which can have a bottom line benefit to our customers. So we approach it from the point of view of how much benefit are we typically able to generate for an organization, and what's the value of that, and then what's a fair price for providing access to that benefit. So we work it, we price effectively on that sort of benefit proposition, arrangement. But naturally, we also benchmark ourselves against other solutions, employing a variety of models, and who deliver similar software but perhaps less services around it. So we can get some comparisons in that manner.
Sure, Alex. And we have also got one question from the participant. This is regarding any practical points you would make regarding rollout of the new SaaS application as it replaces a desktop application. So I think they are referring to a case where you have an on-premise, a desktop application, which you are trying to replace it also an online SaaS mode application. So Veiko, you have any views on this? Was your case more fitting for this scenario?
We have quite a few of customers, actually a couple of large customers also, that have converted from their on-premise solution to cloud solution. And one thing actually that came into my mind is that how for instance the single sign-on would work after you convert into the cloud. That might be a problem, and I think that it needs to be considered before doing the decision as a one special thing. Then of course all the things that are related costs that it would change from one shot purchase to monthly billing. In some cases that is good, but for some organizations it is not good. But of course it's also it's always up to the client themselves to decide which is better.
Okay. And moving on to the operation side of it in relation to that, I believe in your case, Veiko, you are also supporting the hybrid model of both on-premise as well as
That's right.
So how do you find that supporting both the models, and from an operational perspective, is it an overhead for you, or is it adding more business advantage to you?
I think that it's adding more business advantage, since we are actually, our solution is such that we have only one code base, so that the same product is possible to be configured as an on-premise or provided from cloud. In that sense, just adding more business for us when we have the both available.
Sure. I think the key is maintaining the single code base, because otherwise probably you might end up having more additional overhead of it.
Yeah.
Sure. And Alex, from your perspective, how do you find this churn rate affecting? Is it affecting at all, or how do you handle it? Because in SaaS business, it's inevitable to avoid totally the churning of customers. But then, how do you approach it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess our business tends to have a small number of large customers rather than a large number of small customers. But even so, churn is a concern. I think our approach has been one of trying to make sure that we're as well integrated into each of our customers as possible. So I spoke earlier on about us providing added value services off the back of our software and off the back of the data that we can see in that software. That sort of approach, plus also because we are a data-rich application, making sure that our data that comes out of our application is used and valued by many different parts of the business. So not just operations, but HR and finance and any other part of the business that can benefit. Just means that we've got more hooks into that organization and makes it harder for them to stop using the service. Something else that we're now starting to get into quite a lot is, because it's a SaaS environment and because we can see the customer's data, we can also do some quite clever monitoring of their usage and start to actually predict where a customer or a part of a customer organization might be at risk of stopping using the software. And where we can see that kind of behavior starting, we can then make some sort of intervention to try and correct that and keep people happy with using the solution.
Sure, Alex. And Ramkumar, from Texolo perspective, so one question I had is whether do you support the hybrid model, and how do you kind of help minimize some of these operational challenges when they might encounter when they are migrating to a SaaS model? How does Texolo help on those things?
Yeah, I think we are very focused on providing customers the flexibility to host wherever they want, right from on-premise servers to data centers to the cloud, Azure or Amazon or Rackspace, for example. So that is one flexibility that is available so that the customer can support a hybrid model if they want to. That is, particularly large customers would prefer to have it installed on their premise, and some smaller and medium customers may be willing to use it on the cloud. So that you should be able to support both at the same time. And like what one of the other panel members mentioned, it is very, very important to have, while you might have a hybrid model, it's very, very important to have a single code base. And that is possible, particularly when you are trying to maintain a single code base and support a hybrid model for both on-premise customers as well as SaaS customers. And each customer, even a small SaaS customer, would want some amount of customization of the product. It's very difficult in this competitive scenario to say, no, we have a SaaS application and a standard product, you can't customize it. It's very difficult to compete in the market without some amount of customization. So your ability to customize the application for different customers, right from small customers to large, your ability to customize the application from small customers, medium customers to large customers while maintaining a single code base is one of the biggest challenges of migrating to cloud and SaaS, or even migrating or modernizing your existing application to a latest technology. Out of your 100 customers, you may have only 10 customers opting for SaaS, but you still have to plan your development and your product roadmap in such a way that you eventually have a unified platform, unified architecture, a unified system that is able to service both on-premise customers as well as SaaS customers, customize for different customers, all that in a single platform. So that is what actually Texolo provides. It provides a unified platform so that your existing applications can be migrated to that unified platform, and so that you are able to support a hybrid model. You are able to support SaaS on cloud, and still you are able to customize it for different customers without having to maintain different code bases. So that is where we really play an important role, enabling ISVs to migrate to cloud, SaaS, and multi-tenancy.
Thanks, Ram. And along with that, from an approach perspective also, what do you see as a trend of the ISVs trying to take as an approach towards moving to SaaS? Is it more aligned towards a PaaS solution or IaaS? Or
I don't know whether we can pull up the survey results that we have done recently, show it to people here, or we can even refer to that in our blog. We recently did a survey about the adoption, about the trend in the market in terms of how people are adopting to cloud, how people are adopting SaaS. How many of them are looking at developing on .NET? How many of them are looking at developing on something like PaaS? Like what percentage of people would like to do it in-house? What percentage of people would like to outsource? The various different approaches to migrate into SaaS. So we have some very interesting trends. I don't have the figures right away, but we can refer to the Texolo blog, and you will be able to see the graphs there.
Sure.
The essence of what we have seen in the survey is that almost all customers have a roadmap to go to cloud and SaaS in the next 2 years. Almost all. I would say 90-95% of the customers have said that they have a roadmap to go to cloud and SaaS, but the pace at which they are going towards that varies. And the approach they are taking is predominantly trying to bridge. They are not really cutting off their existing development of on-premise application, trying to go to a totally new technology. Nobody is trying to do that. Everybody is trying to have some continuity with what they already have and trying to migrate that into cloud and SaaS so that they are able to support both at the same time.
Sure. Veiko, in your case, how was the approach? Did you evaluate any PaaS solutions, or what were the alternates you considered before you finally ended up moving to SaaS?
We actually started with IaaS because our product, our on-premise product is already a client-server solution. And we studied a little bit the technologies, and we decided that we can start with IaaS so that we actually just buy some server farm capacity and put our servers in there and do some modifications to the servers and client installations, and everything would work. And it did work. But then we saw that there is lots and lots of things that we need to take care by ourselves, or we develop managed software, and that could be provided by PaaS. And we actually then decided to move on over Windows Azure platform so that we can utilize all the possibilities that it's offering to us. So that was our way to do it.
Sure, Veiko. And one of the participants has asked a question stating what sort of capabilities should one look for in an IaaS provider when looking to take a product to market via SaaS. So are there any key aspects you looked into an IaaS provider?
I think that the main thing is actually the pricing then. And there should be reasonable pricing for the servers and the services that they are giving. But I think that in technology sense they are pretty much the same regardless of the provider.
Sure. And I'm sure you might have also analyzed the SLAs that they are providing in terms of availability.
Pardon, could you please repeat that? I didn't get it.
So I was asking whether you also considered the SLAs these IaaS providers are offering, like example availability percentage, how long.
Oh yes, those things of course need to be considered. But I think they were quite similar between the providers.
Sure, Veiko. So Alex, when you transformed in 2005, so how was that decision made, and how did you arrive at the approach?
Well, for us, I think the approach was fairly straightforward to select. The application which we were replacing was technologically considerably out of date and had sufficient limitations in terms of the scale it could serve and its functionality that redevelopment with a genuine multi-tenanted SaaS application was effectively the only route available to us. We did explore the opportunities to perhaps make the existing client-server technology available and accessible, but that was simply too restrictive, we found.
Sure. And how much of a code were you able to reuse, Alex, when you moved to the SaaS?
In our case, very little. I suspect, I think we might be slightly unusual in the sense that we were also changing technology at the same time in terms of the underlying languages used and things like that, and the application being replaced was quite ageist. So we chose to effectively completely rebuild, effectively reproducing the same business logic but not using any of the code.
Sure, Alex. And Veiko, you did mention your product was earlier in a client-server model. So did you consider using any like Citrix kind of a solution to make it available through virtualization to the end users?
No, actually we didn't. After the analysis that we did, we decided to move on because I think that we were able to keep about roughly 90% of the code as it was. So it wasn't that big task for us to convert into SaaS.
Sure, Veiko. And along with that, probably if you can also share if your current solution, is it more on a single tenant model or a multi-tenant model?
Do you mean MFAS? MFAS is you can provide it both. It can be provided as multi-tenant, but also for larger customers, if they wish, we can also put it as configure it as a single tenant.
Sure. But when you run on a single tenant model, does it bring any additional overhead, operational overhead, and how do you counter that?
Yeah, I would say that the customer needs to be big enough before we can allow that to happen, because it of course means more costs for us.
Sure. And do you also have a view that in general that ISV should probably, as a first step, become single tenant model of SaaS, and then they should move to a multi-tenant? Is that something that you would recommend, or is it okay to straight away move to multi-tenant?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. If they are starting from scratch, then I would target the multi-tenant straight away, because I think that it's easy to make the reasoning that the costs are more equally divided between the users if you have multi-tenant solution.
Sure, Veiko. So Alex, what do you think? Is multi-tenant absolutely necessary?
It's interesting. We've actually worked in both ways. We started out when we first offered the SaaS solution largely running multi-tenanted services, but increasingly over the years we've moved towards single tenancy more and more often. I think a number of reasons for that, but one of the biggest considerations for us has been the flexibility over things like applying upgrades. Many of our customers are large organizations with user bases in multiple sites globally, and many of our major upgrades do require a significant element of training of the end users. So coordinating that change management across the whole of a major organization is hard enough, but also having to coordinate that across multiple customers is an increased challenge. So we like the flexibility of having the single tenant, but equally we have found that adopting a single tenant approach has made it easier for us to get through the sort of data security and IT security reviews that most of our customers put us through, particularly with the large financial services organizations. So having completely separate databases and instances has to a certain extent helped that get those ticks in the boxes.
Sure, Alexander. Do you also think the multi-tenancy can bring in operational efficiency? I mean, instead of having it with huge numbers of instances running on single tenant model, do you think it's operationally much efficient to run it in a multi-tenant model?
I think it's certainly running the single tenancy model certainly does bring in efficiencies in terms of hardware utilization, in terms of human resource to perform maintenance and upgrades and what have you. So there is a cost to it, but I think there's a trade-off there to be made between some inefficiency, which obviously has to be reflected in margins and license fees, but the benefits of the flexibility and the peace of mind for the information security stakeholders that I mentioned before.
Sure, Alex. And how long did it take for you to migrate to a SaaS model, Alex, from an on-premise to SaaS model? What would be the duration it took approximately?
I suppose the actual, there's different stages to that for us. We were a very much smaller organization when we took it on, so we had a relatively modest number of customers to migrate. So the actual application build, happened within perhaps a 6-month period or something like that. But the period of actually getting each of the customers to migrate and going through the usual pain of data migration and what have you, probably was actually a multi-year process before we had all of our customers onto the SaaS platform.
Sure, Alex. So Veiko, what is your experience on the migration part, the duration that it took for you to have a SaaS solution in place? How long did it take?
Yes, I think that it took about 5 or 6 months before we were able to take first cloud customers. So that was, of course, the situation when we had on-premise already available and when we converted that. So it didn't take that long time.
Sure, Veiko. And Ramkumar, when you use the SaaS development framework, so what's the typical time frame one would require to launch a multi-tenant solution?
It depends on the existing
Size
technology
of the
and the size of the product. See, we have customers, for example, who moved from an on-premise to cloud-based SaaS in 6 weeks using our Texelo platform. That is, of course, a single tenant model. They were able to move their existing on-premise application to a cloud-based SaaS model within about 6 weeks using our platform, but they first went to a single tenant model. Then they are migrating slowly all the models to a multi-tenant, full multi-tenancy. Now again, full multi-tenancy is not just adding the tenant ID in the database and making the database multi-tenant. That is the easiest part of making it multi-tenant. I think the other challenges are in scalability, because if your application is well designed and layered and properly done, then you will find it easy to make it multi-tenant and scale. Then so the reusability, etc., will depend a lot depending on the technology sophistication and maturity of the existing product. But the real challenge comes when you move to multi-tenancy is when you want to move out a lot of things that you have hard-coded in your product, which you always customize at the code level for different customers. Now you are moving to a different paradigm of multi-tenancy where you have to do a meta-database approach to customization and configuration. If you had already done that in your original product, it's much easier to migrate to multi-tenancy because you are only adding the tenant awareness there. But you already have a configurability and customizability in your existing product. But if you hard-code a lot of things in your product, but when you're moving to multi-tenancy and you want customizability, then the amount of effort that you have to put in to re-engineer a product is quite huge. So the whole thing depends on where your current product is and how you want to go.
Sure. Thanks, and Veiko, this question is for you. Since particularly you deal with the document management solution, even one of the participants has asked, like, have you encountered any data privacy concerns from your end customers when moving them from on-premise to SaaS? And if yes, how did you address it?
Well, of course, those are quite common concerns. But first of all, of course, we need to, when using, for instance, Microsoft Azure, we need to give the information that Microsoft is giving to their customers, and we need to rely on that. So in that sense, we can actually say at some cases, or usually we can say that that is even safer to get your data into Microsoft Azure than keep it on your own servers. And I think that it's even true in many cases when speaking about small and medium business. But then again, if we go to regulated industries and military areas, for instance, then the situation just is such that they don't accept cloud. They have to have their own service, and there's nothing much we can do for that. So there are two kinds of approaches,
Sure, Nico. Alex, did you face any specific unique demands from your end customers in terms of having a solution on a SaaS model?
I think whether they're unique, I don't know, but I think we do have a lot of demand around some of the same considerations that Veiko just mentioned there. Most of our customers are, or many of our customers are large financial services organizations, so there is always a level of nervousness about moving to a SaaS platform about the security of data. We find that whilst there's often talk in the world of software services as putting up a barrier that actually it's a service, the customer doesn't need to worry about what goes on in the background. The reality when dealing with the large customers is that one does need to be very open book about the infrastructure, about the architecture, to give people the confidence that the security is there, and to deal with the level of sensitivity of the data contained. For example, not every application is the same, and different data is housed, and that will drive different requirements from the customers. And equally, we, as well as taking us through those kind of review processes, we increasingly see a lot of customers asking us to demonstrate results of penetration testing, and also asking us to demonstrate our commitment to information security from a from a people and process point of view. So a number of customers have encouraged us to become ISO 27001 accredited, standard for information security, so that they can see that we're taking these subjects seriously.
Sure, Alex. I think we are pretty much run out of time. Probably we'll take this as the last question, and with that we'll wrap our today's webinar. So Vaikon, from two questions partially mixed. One, from a scalability perspective, so do you think the cloud can really address the need or remove the overload from architects from breaking their heads to putting together a complex architecture? And the other thing is also, when you design this architecture, is it necessary to have any kind of thick client or thin client at the end user's environment, or is it possible to totally get away with it?
Yeah, okay. If I start from this no software question.
Sure.
At the moment, I actually think that we need to have both. I think many of the SaaS providers, they are advertising this no software model, but I think that it has so many drawbacks from the end user experience point of view that we can't allow that to happen, or at least I think that we would lose our customers. And it's simply so that restrictions on web-based or browser-based technologies are such high that we can't simply provide the same integrity and same kind of user experience as with native applications. So in that sense, I think that some kind of a thin or smart clients will be needed quite a long time. That has been actually at least our experience. And then the other question, what is about the scalability?
Hello.
What was the other question?
The other question was around like considering now cloud giving you the elasticity in terms of the processing power and hardware. Should the architects really be worried about the scalability anymore, or do you think the cloud will take care of that?
Yeah, I think that SaaS providers we need to be concerned about the scalability, because one of the major issues there is that the server itself to provide really good scalability and robustness should be stateless. And definitely that is something that needs to be taken into account in the first place by the architects, because it's not easy task to convert some stateful server to stateless if that has been already done in the stateful mode.
Sure. Vaiko, I think that brings us to the end of this webinar session today. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists for taking up the time and sharing the valuable insights and their experience in working with SaaS solutions. So I'd also like to thank the participants for attending this session. We'll also be posting this recording in our website, so you can also take a look at it later. Once again, thanks everyone. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.